Hello, and welcome to David Galata Book Dreamer. I'm David Galata. And today I really want to kind of explore the question of why do I write science fiction? Um, why not mystery? Why not write an autobiography or biographies in general? Why not history or historical fiction or romance novels, self-help novels? Those sell like hotcakes. Why science fiction? Well, it's not the money. That's for sure. Not that I'm, not selling books. I'm selling books. I'm very happy about selling books, and I thank all of my readers for purchasing my books. And I thank everyone who's gotten back to me about it because it really helps to hear back from people who've read your material. Can't get better without hearing from the readers. Uh, but why science fiction? Why is that so important to me? And I realize that, that's really the key thing. Science fiction is very important to me. Perhaps it's part of my childhood. I mean, I was really, really young when I first saw 2001. My father took me to the theaters. I was just a little kid. I was in kindergarten, and I loved it. It opened up a lot of doors, I guess, in my mind. And I found it intriguing. It's strange. A little kid, you would think a little kid would almost be bored because the film does not have a lot of fast-paced action in it. It's not meant to. But it is a very serious science fiction. And I think it was the first time science fiction was actually taken very seriously on the screen. Very accurate. No sound in space. That's a great one. Uh, no flames. uh, all the dynamics were correct. And this is because Kubrick was working with Clark. Science fiction as a child was always part of my, I guess, my heritage. My grandmother, on my father's side, loved science fiction, as did my father. And, you know, I got used to being in a house full of books, and many of those books were science fiction books. I would look at the covers as a little kid, and later on, when I was 9, still a little kid, was beginning to read them very seriously. Uh, and that again opened a lot of doors. It opened doors to poetry. It opened doors to classical literature. It opened the doors to learning about history, learning about science. I wanted to understand the science fiction I was reading. And so I started taking books out of the library and borrowing my father's books that were about science facts, science theories of the day, things about astrophysics and stellar dynamics and things like that. All about the planets. I couldn't get enough of it. Science was always a topic I enjoyed. It was something I wanted to get hands-on with. I even went to a summer camp that specialized in the sciences. They had a chem lab. Uh, that was a lot of fun. We had astronomy nights. We had, the chem lab. You had the electronics lab. You had a bio lab. We had all kinds of stuff at this summer camp that was really fascinating. I remember the owner of the camp, who was a science teacher and a principal, would give us demonstrations of liquid nitrogen, things like that. He showed us films on rainy days, um, all of them science fiction days. And that was also another major influence for me. So perhaps this goes back to my childhood. Perhaps I have been steeped in a culture of science fiction for as long as I can remember. I grew up with the original Star Trek being on my TV. I remember being sad when the program was shut down. And it always seemed to me that science fiction always got the last pick when it came to programming for television. And this was when, you had ABC, NBC, CBS, the local station, and PBS. And that was it. You really didn't have a lot of choices. And you couldn't pick and choose, when you were going to see it, what you were going to see. No, 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 no. They chose for you. And every now and then they'd have like a science fiction week or, they'd have a science fiction day. And I would wait for those. So frustrated that it wasn't there. Science fiction just was not a popular topic. And I couldn't understand why. And it got to the point where, and, remember there were no VCRs then, there were no CDs, nothing like that. So you couldn't just buy your favorite pictures and watch them over and over. That just wasn't available. So I almost felt like a starving man in a desert and not having enough new science fiction material to enjoy. And so I abandoned TV in favor of books because I could go to my bookstore and find at least one science fiction I hadn't read before. And then if I wanted to reread one of my books or one of my parents' books, I could because they were there on the shelf, or I could go to the library and find science fiction and science fact books that we didn't own. And I could re-borrow them, and I did. It was an obsession for me for as long as I can remember. I also very much, there's an old tale that the sailors of old always felt the pull of the sea. They would go to the shore and feel the ocean pulling them outward. And I feel something like that every time I look up. I look at the stars and I want to go. I feel it pulling at me. I feel it lifting me up. Maybe I'm a frustrated astronaut. I don't know. Um, I think if I had become an astronaut, I would have been very disappointed. And the reason I hadn't was because I needed glasses at the age of 10, and everyone, including the optometrist, told me they don't accept astronauts who don't have perfect vision. This was when every astronaut was a U.S. Air Force test pilot, which was completely unnecessary. But that's what the politicians wanted, and so that's what they got. I would be disappointed today because we're not going anywhere. We're just kind of circling our planet, putting up more satellites, putting out a lot of junk, losing a lot of material out there because we keep staying in the same spot. It's like being in a wading pool when there's an Olympic one just right over there, but everyone is sitting in the little kiddie pool and splashing their feet and saying, "Isn't this wonderful?" To me, it's not. We're so risk averse, and a lot of that has to do with money. You um, I know all the insurance companies freaked out when the Challenger exploded. And all this blame, people pointing at each other, the shuttle program suddenly became rocky and eventually crashed, so to speak. And not to say that I'm glad anyone's life was lost. No, not at all. It's a very sad thing. But when you are on the edge of a new frontier, those are the risks. Those are the risks. And we don't learn anything unless we take risks. And we become so risk aversive that we're not really that interested in going anywhere but staying on our local street. I think this is unfortunate. I think we could be a lot further along with this. I also think that, and this is my personal opinion, and if YouTube decides to shut me down for it, well, they can. But I also think a lot of the sciences have been tailored by government and corporate interests, and very little of that has anything to do with the stuff you see in science fiction, unless it's the dystopian type, like 1984 and Alex Huxley, in which case, oh, they're all over that. Oh, they love that. You know, let's increase technology to spy on everyone and to make gobs of money about things we don't need and don't care about the repercussions for. Ah, no, I don't. I don't agree. But I guess I'm an idealist at heart. Maybe that's part of it too. I am a frustrated idealist who loves the sciences and feels the pull of the stars. That might be enough to turn anyone into a science fiction author. And, I guess it only comes naturally to me because of my early environment and because of how I feel. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't, that I think other genres aren't worthwhile. No, they're very worthwhile. I've even read good westerns. But it's not the kind of thing I necessarily want to write. I want to write science fiction. I want to use science fiction as a tool for expressing ideas that maybe can't happen here. That's something that's in my Ganji series. If you look at that and you see modern politics, that's because you're obsessed with modern politics. I really did not have modern politics in mind when I was writing the first trilogy. I was actually thinking more along the lines of what would happen. What is the human condition in this situation? And what if? A lot of what if. Plus, those books were based on a very long, drawn out dream. Yeah, I even dream science fiction. Yes, I do. Pretty much every other night, I'm in some kind of sci-fi world, which can be good, can also be horrific sometimes. Uh, it's generally good. So all these factors add up. I find science fiction to be a wonderful platform to explore and to explore in ways that detaches myself as the writer from the material and also helps the reader to detach from their current views and go, oh, what if we could do this? Or what if we did that? What might be the repercussions of this? Would human greed rear its head once again? Of course, it always does. Humans have a tendency toward violence and towards greed, towards selfishness. And that is our biggest Achilles heel, and we are constantly whacking it. So that's something that I have a lot to say about is the human condition and how we might evolve or not, even if we're in radically different conditions. What would remain the same? What might change? The science fiction, I think, helps me to explore some of these avenues and not necessarily to come to conclusions, but to tease out new ideas and new frontiers and new ways of thinking that aren't mired in what's happening now. I am actually very disinterested in most of the things happening here and now. Um, because, man, it's predictable, isn't it? It really is. It's predictable. Uh, Leaders are always going to try to get away with things. People in charge are always grasping for more power. Wealthy people always going for more and more and more and more. And people are just caught in the vacuous echo chamber of fashion and fads. Yeah, that's really easily predictable because that's pretty much humanity in a nutshell for the last several thousand years. And I want to throw a real curveball at some of those things. And I find the best way to do that is with science fiction. So I hope this answered that question. Why do I write science fiction? Well, there it is. That's why I write science fiction. Love it or hate it, there it is. Uh, I do want to thank you for watching this. I do want to thank you for being here, especially if you got to this point at the end. Good job. Well done. Please like and subscribe. It would really help me out tremendously. I'm just trying to grow a little YouTube space for me and for my readers, where, and I'm hoping that at some point we'll be able to even collaborate and maybe I'll have some guests here and stuff. It'd be nice doing this with someone else. Uh, so please do like and subscribe. Give me a nice little thumbs up. And I will see you next week with another chapter of David Gullotta Book Dreamer. Until then, happy reading, everyone. Take care.